What's up guys, my name is Sebastián and welcome to another episode of Seba Reviews, where we're going to review the latest film in the live-action hybrid subgenre that nobody asked for. It's a genre that for whatever reason Hollywood will not let it go. I mean, they never let any genre go. I mean, well, Western stuff. But live-action hybrid movies though, hell yeah, moneymaker. It's a genre that comes and goes, lives and dies. For what reason, there's like a period of a couple of years where they just keep racking up these movies and then they disappear. And then they come back, as is the case right now, with the latest one being before this one. Sonic the Hedgehog apparently was a big success. And I don't know if this movie we're going to talk about was done before. I think it was done before, like a couple of years before Sonic the Hedgehog came out. But I mean, what a coincidence, what a timing to just put this movie a year after Sonic came out. Wow. And of course, the latest one in this subgenre to have come out recently is Tom and Jerry. I mean, look, like a lot of people, we asked ourselves, why is this movie happening? Why is it going like this? Why is it taking this route? I mean, just like with every other franchise, like Alvin and the Chipmunks, like Sonic the Hedgehog, the Smurfs, like why are these franchises, these cartoons are taking into the real world? Why do Hollywood studios keep doing this over and over again? And as we've seen for more than a decade, this does not work. Even way back from Rocky and Bullwinkle, this formula for whatever reason does not work. It's probably the writing, but for whatever reason, just the writing is always kind of poor in these movies. And I guess the idea of just mixing these two things, just either it doesn't work, or people just come in lazy and not creative and just make a bad product. Not to say this formula does not work, period, because I mean, well, there's Roger Rabbit, Who Framed Roger Rabbit, and that's about it. I mean, the rest of them have not worked. And for this movie, Tom and Jerry, which, my God, I can't believe that it's kind of dodged this formula for a long time until somebody decided, wait, we haven't done this with Tom and Jerry though. So of course, I was already with a very pessimistic view of it. I'm like, cause why? Why do we need to take this approach with these characters? Why do we need to keep doing this? Even with Sonic, I was like, well, this is not necessary. I haven't seen the movie yet. Apparently a lot of people like it in a sort of way. Even some people admit that it's not a good movie, but they kind of liked it because there's a charm to it. But I just don't think it was necessary. It's, again, same thing with this movie. But, you know what? Even though I didn't want this movie at all, I thought, you know what? Either there could be, just like people are saying with Sonic, there could be some charm in here. Something good can come from this movie. Or, not that I want to shit on the filmmakers and people that work on this movie, this could be a movie that's so bad that's funny and enjoyable because it is really bad. I mean, either case, I would have enjoyed it in a way. I mean, if it's a kind of a good movie, then hey, it wasn't too bad. If it's a really bad movie that's really funny, hey, it would have been hilarious. But a big part of me expected this movie to not even be good. Maybe not terrible, but not good at all. I just like, I mean, I saw the trailers. I was like, I don't think this is gonna be a good movie. Maybe it's not, again, not terrible, but I don't think this is gonna work. Because I saw a lot of things, not because it's just a live action hybrid movie. I saw a lot of things that happen in these live action hybrid movies that alarmed me, and I already kind of knew what to expect. So, I mean, I had the lowest of lowest expectations before seeing this movie. I was like, maybe there could be some good. Hey, I'm not gonna go in like shitting already, come in with this hatred, like, oh, this movie's gonna suck. I was like, hey, I'm hoping to see like maybe something good come out of this. I'm not coming in immediately with hatred with this movie. And then the movie starts with rapping pigeons. Because the movie started, I was like, okay, it's just starting off kind of easily. It's just started. I'm like, okay, not bad. And then the pigeons come out and start rapping. And I was like, oh my God, here we go. Because one of the things in a lot of these movies is like, oh, we need to bring a lot of pop culture references, a lot of like the hippity hops just to make it hip and cool with kids. And I was already, again, first 5 to 10 seconds, I was like, this does not even start on the right foot. And I thought, okay, maybe these pigeons are gonna be like the narrators or something. Like, why do we need pigeons narrating the movie? I don't know, but okay, maybe that's the case. No, dude, these pigeons just come out randomly. They're just interjected there. They're like, oh, here we go, random scene with these fucking pigeons. It's like, dude, the things that they do with these pigeons. There's a scene that they just linger in one of them, just coming out of nowhere, like just away from the action. Why do we need to do this? Dude, they're so annoying. I couldn't stand them. Like, why are these pigeons here? It's also weird that Tim Story plays one of them, so that tells you a lot right there. But you know, the movie, after the fucking pigeons come out, was actually started being pretty good. And we started seeing the characters, you know, Tom and Jerry, seeing what's going on with them, seeing the city of New York, which, of course, I mean, how many times we're going to put these animated characters in the city of New York with, you know, real people, well, real in a way, I mean, this fucking cartoony movies. But I was kind of enjoying seeing what they're doing. I mean, so far, I was like, hey, this movie could actually be better than I expected. But so many questions arise from this, because, okay, the coolest thing, but at the same time, it doesn't work because they just don't tackle this concept, is the idea that, okay, so, because I thought, okay, how the hell, maybe they don't explain this and maybe don't have to, it's just a thing. Because, of course, how the hell does Tom and Jerry exist in the world of living, breathing, picturesque human beings, you know, us? Like, how do they live with us? I was thinking that, okay, maybe they're just gonna do like cartoons, like, hey, whatever, they're there and we don't have to question that. I was gonna go along with that. Still, maybe a thing I would have asked myself later. I was just thinking, maybe ask myself before the movie, but I was like, okay, whatever. Tom and Jerry are there. Let's see how this works. It's like they kind of wanted to justify that. I was saying, okay, hey, wait a minute. It's not just Tom and Jerry they're here for whatever reason. They're here because all of the animals are animated. They're cartoons. I was like, wait a minute. This animal's a cartoon. Whoa, wait, all of them are cartoons. It was crazy. I mean, yeah, again, from just seeing the pigeons out of nowhere, I'm like, okay, so maybe they're introducing animated pigeons, but maybe the rest of the animals are just normal, real animals, but no. And I kind of appreciate that because it's at least consistent, but how do they exist? I mean, they don't have to explain that. Maybe it's just, again, kind of like Roger Rabbit, they're just there. That's kind of cool. We don't see a real living, breathing animal. They're all cartoons. One of my questions was like, how do they coexist with the humans? Like, because we see some animals are just acting like, behaving like normal animals, but we see animals like Tom and Jerry, Spike, and other cast of characters, and you're like, so they talk, they walk on 2 feet, sometimes they act like normal people. How does this work? As you see things later, they just keep arising questions. How does society interact with these animals? Like, I mean, of course, for over 50 years, like, Tom and Jerry are one of the animals that rarely or ever speak, while the rest animals sometimes speak, sometimes don't. It's just a thing that's like, it's a thing in the cartoons, like, it doesn't make complete sense, but we go along with it because they're cartoons, whatever, they're fine. But how do people justify that? Okay, this is a normal dog, I can treat him as a pet, and this is a independent, self-spoken, conscientious animal. Like, how do we go with this? How does this work? But already the world is weird when you see billboards of Acme, which I kind of enjoy that. Like, oh hey, they're actually making Acme kind of modern in a way, but actually putting in a work. Because we haven't seen Acme in any I mean, maybe, I don't know. But for my knowledge, I don't think I've seen Acme in a live action big budget film. So I like that. And even the billboard, it's like just a fucking chainsaw. Just looking violently, just by looking at it, it looks dangerous as hell. It just tells me like, okay, this world is a little weird. Because I mean, again, cartoon animals, Acme products, it just tells me this is a kind of a wacky, surreal version of our reality. And I have to say the designs, although they look weird at first, maybe sometimes they kind of look weird. Maybe, I don't know if it's cheap. Some people comment that it's cheap. They're not the best designed, they're not the best looking, but I didn't think they looked terrible by no means. I just, at first it looked odd. I'm like, even, you know, trying to juxtaposing them with a real image is strange, but later on it kind of worked out for me. And what I do appreciate from this movie is that instead of just doing the typical, like, oh, let's make the realistic versions of these characters and making it look god-awfully atrocious, or just putting actual real animals and trying to make them talk, which that would have been bad as well. I like that. Okay, they didn't make him 2D for whatever reason. I guess because they want to make it more modern and make it cool with 3D models. But whatever, at least I appreciate that they still made him as 2D as they could, you know, as the original designs, but a little bit three-dimensional. It's like 2.5 dimensions. I at least I liked that they went for that approach. Not that I need to see them, you know, animated in CG at all, but or even with real people, but I appreciated them going with the original designs and not trying to make him look realistic. Again, this concept is interesting of having all the animals as cartoons. Later on, we see the movie, you're like, this gets weirder and just more complex. But although I kind of like this concept, it's a thing that they don't work on. They don't even try to explain, and not that I don't have to explain where they come from, but at least trying to make some logic or something that we can understand from this. They just don't even try. They're like, well, they're all cartoon animals, I guess, to just explain why Tom and Jerry exist in the first place. But oh, why are they all like this? How do these work? Don't worry about it. At least we made some effort. And the thing is, it just makes it super complicated when they try to bring this just to explain one thing, but doesn't try to explain this. It just makes it so complicated. In a world that's kind of unnecessary, it just brings up more questions. It's a headache. Oh, but what's the plot of the movie? Well, easy. The plot of the movie is Tom and Jerry are there, and at some point, Chloe Grace Moretz, who plays Kayla in the movie, is interjected into the movie, and this plot where the rest of the movie takes place in this hotel in New York, where they have to somehow deal with this celebrity couple. We're having a wedding, and that's about it. And of course, most stuff happens there, but that's really the basic plot. And that's the thing, like, what? Because, well, the idea of Tom and Jerry having their own movie, either it's an hour and 30 minutes or 2 hours, goddamn. For me, even though some people tell me that, hey, a Tom and Jerry movie with just Tom and Jerry as themselves can work, I was one of those people that think, like, man, seeing an hour and 30 or 2 hours of just them fighting and not speaking whatsoever, because I don't want them to speak. A movie is just about them physically fighting, doing those physical gags for 2 hours or an hour and 15 or whatever, would have been too much for me, unless you make it work. Because I think the way to make it work is having those gags, but having the story, I guess, with human characters, or it doesn't have to be human. I guess they can bring other characters, they're animals, they can speak, but they have to bring something that just that. I don't think just that would have been serviceable. I don't think it would have been enough. So I guess in a sense they have to bring humans into this movie to kind of balance it out and bring an actual story to keep it going, to have these different pieces with Tom and Jerry interjected, you know, connect them in a way. But again, live action hybrid movies, why I don't need to see these humans in here and in this real setting. I don't need to see that, but whatever. Okay, I was like, let's see how these people work. Chloe Grace Moretz, I'll say I did not like her in the movie. By the end of it, I was like, okay, she's fine. But for the whole, like, 95% of the movie, I did not like her character. Her character was just pretty annoying, despicable, just an all-around bad person. She's just pretty shitty, sarcastic. She just treats people badly. I mean, she does some questionable things, some really bad motives, and I'm like, okay, interesting, because I didn't expect her character to be like this at all. I thought she would just be straight-laced, kind of normal character, and like, oh, try to be funny, and that's it. So at least they took a different approach than I would have expected. But she was unlikable for me for the whole film, except for like maybe the third act. But I just didn't like her, and other than just being a bad person, her just trying to be funny by trying to be nervous, stuttering and shit like that. It was kind of annoying. I could not stand her that much. I didn't hate her, but I really didn't like her. I couldn't stand her. And she's also pretty fucking racist. I mean, she was kind of racist towards British people, and she was kind of racist towards black people because, dude, there's this scene where she's just this black guy is just standing there. Like, she hasn't met this person at all, and she already starts to talk with, like, some slang. I was like, wow. Of course, when you see the black guy, you gotta be like, oh, hey, what's up? Like, that's bad. That's bad. The things they did with her does come off as racist. Although that one scene again with a British character was pretty bad. I was like, wow, that was just flat out offensive. And the person in question that she talks to about like this with this slang is this bartender character who ends up being her love interest in a way. And I didn't mind him in the movie. He was fine, but there was just some questionable stereotypes. I mean, nothing like, wow, like this is shit, but just things that you're like, really? Like, do we have to do these things? But at the end of the day, he was good. He was not bad. Although, yes, and I also thought about this, like because I guess Hollywood still doesn't, a lot of Hollywood still doesn't want to do or put an interracial couple. Like, oh, if she's with a black guy, then okay, they can sort of talk to each other and be romantic with each other, but oh, they can kiss. Like, hell no, we don't have sex. Fuck that shit. Although this relationship that we're gonna see, I also understand why it doesn't go the way it goes, because it would have been too soon if you ask me. But you can tell, man, they didn't even try to touch that, or at least try to do more with that. I think it's just racist ass Hollywood. And although it also makes sense that, you know, they're starting new friends, because if you told me that they immediately are a couple, that would have been super irreal and pretty annoying and a bad point for me. But he just comes off as this friend, and of course, like, oh, well, I'm the black friend who will help you, and I kind of like you, but we can't go past that because Hollywood says no. So the relationship wasn't bad. I just can tell they weren't even trying or try to do much with it, but at the same time, if they try to rush it, it wouldn't have felt natural, because they've only met for like a couple days or something, not even that, a day or two. And Michael Peña's in this movie, which, you know, he's an actor I don't dislike. I think he's an actor that a lot of people love, but it's something I just don't find why. But he's not bad. I mean, there's a lot of roles I don't think he's that good. I'm like, okay, what do you guys say? That's fine, and he's getting work. I'm glad he is. But in this movie, I don't know why they give him or why he chose. I don't know if it's like direction or him or whatever. But he has a thicker accent, an accent he never has. It's weird. I'm like, why? That's a strange choice. And Michael Peña, like from the trailer, you thought like, oh, he'd just be like kind of normal. He kind of looked like he'd just be kind of straight as well. But no, dude, like immediately once he meets Kayla, he just hates her. He just hates her for whatever reason, like for nothing. He's just like, oh, what's she doing here? Like, oh, like who's already like alarmed by her? Like, what the fuck, dude? Why? And Michael Peña was fine. I mean, some parts he was not good, some parts he was fine, and some parts he was kind of good, but his character was kind of like all over the place. Like, he did some like terrible choices, like some really bad choices with no consequences. I'm like, wow, are we supposed to just go along with this? Like, this is unacceptable. They especially do something with him, something I don't think he deserves. I mean, this, after all this shit that he's done, you're trying to bring this to me, and I'm supposed to accept that and be like, oh yeah, that's cool. No! What kind of lesson are you trying to give me here? Oh yeah, and there's this terrible pun in this movie. I'm like, wow. And that terrible pun was spoken by a character by the name of Ben, who's played by Colin Jost. And I'll just say right now, from his entire cast, and nothing against Colin Jost, but the worst, at least performance that I saw in this movie is unfortunately from Colin Jost. If you don't know, he's from Weekend Update from Saturday Night Live, which I've seen him a couple times, and last time I saw him, he was pretty good. He was laughing a lot of that Weekend Update, almost like Jimmy Fallon levels, but he was enjoyable when I saw him in that Weekend Update. I'm like, okay, he's not bad. But in this movie, dude, oh my god, he is not that good. And I'm sorry, but he was not terrible, but he was not good either. Sometimes where he wasn't there, like giving that much effort, or he's just not good. I'm sorry, but that's the thing. And his character is really terrible. Because at the beginning, you see this, you know, because Ben is a part of that celebrity couple. Like, they're supposed to be, but we don't know what they're famous for. And at first, I'm like, okay, he looks kind of charming. Like, okay, cool. And then I guess they do this choice just to show us that, oh, they're not this perfect couple how you might have thought from the beginning. They're kind of weird and they're not perfect. And like, especially him, not her, really. It's him. Dude, he does some weird stuff and some awful things. And there's some really bad stuff with him in this movie. I got annoyed by him by halfway through the movie. I wanted him out. I'm like, wow, this dude sucks. Even Prita, who's the fiance, she was pretty good. She was played by Pallavi Sharda. I think I've seen her before. I'm not sure, but she was fine. She was good. It wasn't bad. Rob Delaney, who plays Dubrow, he was kind of weird. Some of this movie has like a wacky cast sometimes. Like, he was kind of off. Like, it wasn't bad. It wasn't even that much to be annoying, but he just has this weird tone this whole time, just saying some stuff. But there was this weird line they said about, like, you know, how this particular character had to work. It was weird, but even that rose a lot of questions about how animals work with these people. I don't know, but he wasn't bad, or I wasn't terrible. I could have done without him. He was just not the best. He was not even good, really, but I didn't hate him. He just teetering too bad and annoying. And this movie also falls, and I'll talk about this later, but they fall to some stereotypes and some wrong messages of like, oh, if you're ugly, then you're weird, you're scary. Like with this character of Joy, played by Patty Fernan, like, oh, she's ugly. Like I hated what they did with her. It was pretty kind of offensive. Like, wow, really? They're gonna treat her like shit? People don't care about her? Like, oh, that's supposed to be funny? Like, man, fuck you. Like, almost everyone in this cast is either serviceable or just not good or brought with some really bad material. But you know who I thought was actually good, at least from the human cast, which I actually did not despise or disliked at all, was Ken Jeong. I thought he was kind of good. I thought he would have been one of the worst parts of the movie, to be honest with you. But he wasn't in it that much, and the times that he was in the movie, he was actually enjoyable to me. I found him to be funny, not hilarious, but I thought he was funny here and there. I actually liked them, surprisingly. Yeah, but the cast of human characters, they're not good. I'll just say right there, none of them are good. Even the ones that are like, they're fine. They're not annoying or bad people. They're just not good. There's a lot of characters in here who are bad people, period. They're just terrible. There's some weird choices. I know it's supposed to be more of like a kids movie, but some people do some things in here. The behaviors, the things that they do around the world. I mean, this is absurd and way too much for me. This is like way too wacky. This doesn't work for me. It just doesn't work with the visual tone. Even the visual tone, I'll just say it's not good. I mean, not that great. It's not terrible. It's just like CBS Productions kind of level kind of deal. Just pretty subpar. It's pretty bland. But we also have the cast of characters who are cartoon animals. Like, for example, Butch the cat, who's played by Nick Jam, who's, if you don't know, he's one of the biggest reggaeton artists in history from Puerto Rico. So he's pretty good. Yeah, I was like, okay, because they made a deal about him being in the movie for a little bit. They made a whole behind the scenes shtick with him doing an interview, and he's not in it that much, but he's actually pretty good. I was like, okay, I liked him for the little that he was in the movie. And they also made this huge deal of Ozuna, who's also a huge reggaeton artist from Puerto Rico, who they did the whole thing again with the behind the scenes interview with him saying like, yeah, I'm thankful for being in this movie. I think we did a good job doing this and this and that. And he was only in there for a cameo, and it was a weird cameo because they lingered on him. He didn't play as himself, by the way. He just had a cameo as someone else, and they linger on him like people are supposed to know who he is. But people who don't know who was Asuna would have been like, who's this dude? It was weird but funny. But it just thought, I'm like, wow, they made a huge deal about him being in here, and he was only for 2 seconds. Not even, I think it's just 1 second. I'm not kidding you. But then, okay, you're saying, okay, awesome, you're talking about the cast, but isn't the movie called Tom and Jerry? Why aren't you talking about them? Because that's the problem. Tom and Jerry, although people are saying that they're barely in the movie, and they're like playing third string in the movie, and that's kind of true, although we do see them quite often. I'm not saying like we don't barely see them at all, but yes, they do play third string in the movie. They're not even the main, almost the main characters of the movie. I know there are all those movies with like Willy Wonka or Wizard of Oz where they're playing like the side cast of this main cast, but the main cast that we're following, they're supposed to be the side characters. Tom and Jerry's supposed to be the main people that we're following. But in this movie, man, they decided to focus more on the human story, which I don't give a fuck about. And it's pretty bland, it's generic, there's nothing interesting there. Tom and Jerry should have been the one that pulls it out of making this super basic stories or something at least quite enjoyable, but no, not even that. For a long time, I loved the Tom and Jerry cartoons, and I remember for a long time as a kid, I think a lot of people are realizing this now, I was more on Jerry's camp. I'm like, man, Tom's an asshole. He just comes out of nowhere, just try to kill Jerry. Jerry's just trying to have a good time, and you know, Jerry's trying to survive. I was always on Jerry's side. I mean, Tom was enjoyable, but I'm just saying, Jerry was the innocent guy here. I was wrong. This movie opened my eyes to realize that, oh no, wait, Jerry is a fucking asshole. And even after this movie, I saw the short cartoons with some of my friends, and I realized like, wow, Jerry's a fucking dick. And I know some cartoons, Tom is the bad guy, Jerry's just the innocent guy, and there are some cartoons where they're actually friends for a couple of runs. I think it was like the 50s. But for the most part, Jerry is the fucking dick. He is a despicable piece of filth that just, for whatever reason, just wants to fuck with Tom, and especially in this movie. I mean, dude, nothing happened. Tom was just minding his own business, just trying to get a quick buck, just trying to find his way to survive. And Jerry's like, you know what, fuck him, I want his money and fuck his business. Like, dude, after that, and that's like probably like the first act of the movie, one of the first things that happened. Throughout the whole rest of the movie, I'm like, fuck this guy. Like, after that moment, I don't care about him. Fuck him. And Tom is actually the most likable character in this movie. He's barely, like, I mean, he's in it often, but I'm saying, like, even I felt he's barely in the movie. Jerry jumps up a little bit more. I'm like, oh yeah, where the fuck is Tom? But I like Tom. I feel so bad for him in a lot of parts of the movie. I'm like, man, he was just minding his own business. Like, why is he wrapped up in this shit? Like, Jerry, fuck you. But yeah, they're barely in it. They barely have much to do. They're just there fighting sometimes, and even that shit gets pretty tiring and not even interesting. It's kind of boring, by the way. I'm like, oh, this is not funny at all. There's one sequence that kind of was okay, but the stuff with them, it's just not entertaining. Although they do, what I kind of liked about it, like, which I get to see some effort put in this movie, is like they actually put a lot of references through the cartoons of Tom and Jerry. There's even some references to Hanna-Barbera stuff in here, which is that's very cool. I mean, yet you could also question they rip off some scenes from Tom and Jerry. Are they just references, or are they just ripping them off and being lazy with it? I can't say. They just barely have anything to do, and it sucks. And yeah, the movie's really about the humans, and I don't care about any of them. I don't care about them. They're really boring and unlikable. And yeah, Jerry does some weird shit, by the way. Jerry does some stuff. I'm like, what the fuck is he doing? And dude, let's talk about the music in this movie. The music choices. I don't think is there a composer in this movie? I don't even think so, because what they do in this movie is use licensed music, licensed pop music that is not good in the first place, or they put some generic instrumentals in the background that I've heard in of 2000s movies. They're not good, and it sucks, dude. It sucks. And my main issue here was, well, the instrumental is actually bad. It's bad, but the use of the licensed pop music in here, the way they put him in there, put him in off the and it just doesn't work. The music choices are bad. I'm like, oh my god, it sucks because they want to appeal to the kids. They want to appeal like, oh, isn't this cool, kids? Like, put all these pop music. Isn't this fun? Like, yeah. And I also heard this criticism from Corey Coleman from Double Toes, which I'm like, yes, dude, I totally saw this and I actually felt with you in this criticism. I wanted to bring it up. That they use appropriate a lot of black culture in this movie to kind of make it all like, aren't we cool, guys? Like, look at this hip hop song in here, and you know, there's a lot of like black voice actors, but the way that he speaks is very stereotypical, and you're like, why are we doing this? It's just, I guess it's just, again, to make it cool, because I think this is what Hollywood does. Like, oh, this shit sells, like black culture sells, and it was just downright offensive. I'm like, I couldn't believe, like, Tim Story, dude, who is African American, like, why the hell would he do this? Or maybe he chose to do this, like, hey, I'll do my part, I'll put all this stuff in this movie, and it was just offensive. I'm like, wow, dude, do you even know what you're doing in here? Again, more questions arose, like, stuff with the physics, with the cartoons. I mean, dude, it didn't make any sense, but it broke my mind. And there's also poop humor. Oh my god, there's poop humor here. Oh my god, especially one scene in particular. Dude, one of the worst things I've seen in this movie. It is bad. It can be funny in a bad way, but wow. And there's a message they're trying to say with Kayla that it was conflicted, and it is not a good message at all. Dude, they try to give something a lesson. Did not work. It is not a message to follow. Like, if you hear this message in the movie, please do not follow that. Oh, and also I forgot to say, Spike, who's played by Bobby Cannavale, which he was kind of good, kind of sounding like classic Spike, which I did like. But sometimes I heard him, he just sounded like maybe he was tired or something. Like, he was just not into it that much. He just sounded eh. But sometimes he was okay. He just did not sound good, great. He was just eh. But Spike the character though, dude, he was not Spike. He was just really dumb. Spike is not ever brilliant, but he was just really dumb in this movie. Like baby level intelligence. That shit was stupid. So at the end of the day, like, the writing is pretty bad. Like I said, the music choices are god awful. There's some questionable like racial stereotypes, not just like black culture, but with other things. I'm like, wow, this is pretty bad. Like, why? This movie is like something that should have come out. Not that it have to come out, but this is a movie that if it came out, you would have told me this came out in 2003 or 2004, something like that. 2021, this movie is just unacceptable in a lot of levels. Like, by the way it's produced, by the way it's written, by the way they put some like old like music, something like it came out from that decade, or just some stereotypes and some humor that does not work nowadays. Like, this movie is so old in its style and just in every sense of the filmmaking. It is something that is pretty offensive in a lot of ways. Like, I come out of this movie, I didn't hate the movie. I was like, okay, you know what? It's not a good movie, but I don't hate the movie at all. I was like, okay, I kind of like some things, but after listening to some other criticisms and seeing it again and just thinking about the movie, this movie is offensively terrible in a lot of ways. Offensive in like stereotypes or whatever, but also offensive in just treating you like you're an idiot. Treating you with some like with a smorgasbord of like digestible crap. Like, yeah, I've shoved this shit in here, like all this processed crap. Like, dude, this is a Hollywood movie. It's some processed, manufactured, fabricated crap that it's bad. Like, this is studio shit. This is not a filmmaker stuff. This is a studio who did this movie. And I don't think Tim Story, I don't want to say that he's his fault too, but I just think either he's just does whatever Hollywood tells him to do, and like, fuck yeah, I'll do it, or he's just not very, very creative, and he just puts in a lot of things that people think it's cool and kids will like, but it's not good. And I can't say there's some effort put into this. Like I said, it was like some references, and maybe some scenes are not bad, or maybe they actually trying to make something out of the scene or something like something. And I thought was cool. Like they bring like the storm clouds, like the cartoons fight, and they make this cloud. They did some stuff with that was actually interesting. It's something I never thought of, and it's actually pretty clever. It should have been better, but it was interesting. The premise and the way they did it in one scene was actually kind of cool. But yeah, this movie is just pretty poor in a lot of levels. It got boring. Even though this movie is not too long, sometimes I'm like checking my imaginary clock, like, dude, is this shit over or what? But again, since they put some effort into this, I can't say it's like god awful, like the worst thing in the world. Like, I feel like there's something. Like, if I could feel like it's no effort put in there and it's just lazy for everything, like, yeah, fuck this movie. Although fuck this movie in a lot of levels, I can say that at least something was tried. Maybe they tried to do something in some parts, but I do feel it's like this is one of those putting their stamp in this shit and saying like, this is what we want, this is what sells, this is what the kids will like. That's it. Put it out there. Even though the studio itself were like, yeah, we're not sending screeners at all. So I guess they knew they needed something bad in here. But yeah, at least some of the effort saved it from being a total wreck of a movie. But yeah, this movie sucks and it pisses me off in a lot of ways. I keep thinking about it, it'll just make me worse and worse. So I gotta give this movie, I'll give this like a 4 out of 10. Because again, there's some effort. Although this movie's flat as fuck with his writing and everything, there's a lot of stuff that pisses me off in this movie. I don't want to give this movie a pass. I think this movie, stuff like this should not get a pass. This movie is just a problem with Hollywood for a long time. But I don't despise this movie. Like, oh my fucking god, this movie. I didn't hate myself watching this movie. I mean, I hate myself a little bit. I didn't think it was like a god-awful abomination. I think there's some effort to kind of save it up a little bit and saying like, okay, you know what? It's not, like I said, a complete wreck of a movie. So I'll give this a 4 out of 10. It's flat as shit. There's a lot of offensive crap in here. Not offensive like it. When I say the original stuff, it's not like super offensive. Like, oh my god. I'm just saying like 2021, we're still doing this shit. Like that shit pisses me off. It's always making me go to a 3. I'll stay with a 4 just in case. Could change later on, but I'll stick with a 4. Fuck this movie. Did you guys see Tom and Jerry? What do you think about the movie? Did you like it? Did you not like it? If you did like it, what did you like? If you didn't like, what didn't you like? Tell me your opinions. Let's talk about it in the comments. Let's discuss this movie. If you like this review and you want to see more reviews from me, film-wise, TV-wise, game-wise, I'm trying to do game-wise, just let me know in the comments what do you want to see. Just like, subscribe, and share this video, and stay tuned for more reviews like this and other kinds of stuff, because I have a lot going on. So my name is Sebastián Productions, y yo soy aquí hablando shit.